We're in a really interesting time as a collective. There are things that we're aware of now that we haven't been aware of in recent human history anyway. And there are things that are harming us that we can actually do something about now. And one of those things that I see over and over and over again is how much shame holds people down, holds people back, keeps people stuck. And we get shame from so many different places, right? Like I really think of shame as anytime someone says that you should blank, we have a shame message going on. And anytime we have a fear, we often have shame at its root. And every time you go through trauma, usually there's shame at the root, right? And shame, as if we can kind of separate, guilt is I did something bad. And there's so much room for that, right? Because that's a growth place where I did something that goes against my values, or I did something that I don't like that I did. Okay, we can behavior change. The next thing we do can be a different behavior than that behavior. So guilt can be really helpful in transmuting and growing. Shame tends to be a lot more sticky than that. Shame is I am bad, right? It has this core place of I am inherently wrong, I am inherently broken, I am unworthy, I am not good enough, I am a bad person, I am blank in this stuck place. And there are so many places where we as humans get shame from. Some of the shame comes from cultures that we're a part of, societies that we're a part of, communities that we're a part of. There are also people that really profit off of shame and literally intentionally put shame out there so they can sell things. There's shame in our movies. There's shame in social media. There's basically this web of shame that comes from all over. And so it's easy to get really stuck in it, especially when that's maybe just the norm of the people that you grew up with or the people that you're around. And shame also has a way of making something like our own personal problem, our own personal failing, when sometimes what we're struggling with is a much more collective issue. And the thing about shame is that it gets really loopy really fast, right? Like the more shame we have, the more shame we get, basically. You, let's say, drink and then you feel shame for how you acted. That shame is actually more likely to make it so you drink to avoid. And then you feel more shame about that and more shame. So it kind of has a spiraling loop downward in how we experience it. And it's so normal and human to experience shame, right? To touch shame, for our brain to go there. And yet, when we stay there and when we don't challenge it, and what often happens, right? Shame comes from our early life. A lot of times for people before 12. So from these young ages, we go through these things where we then take on these shame messages. And then as we go out through our life, we're just looking for things to prove our shame correct, which again, keeps us stuck. So what I'm asking of you is not an easy task, but it is a task that is so much more possible now more than ever. And we're so much more aware of the rewards of challenging shame. Another important piece about it is most of it's not ours. Like it doesn't come from us. We take it in and then it sounds like us over time. So I've used this example before, but undoing shame is a lot like if we were to imagine that clay just keeps getting plopped up on top of you and someone else is trying to sculpt you and who you are and what you're here to do and what you're here to be. This process is like taking off the clay that isn't yours, that you didn't put there, and then realizing you were a fully formed human underneath. That you don't actually need shame to be motivated. You don't really need shame to learn lessons. We don't need shame to keep us stuck anymore. And we definitely don't need shame to keep us small. And challenging shame, I think of it as resistance and connected to our liberation because of that part of people profiting off of it. So it is powerful when we decide, you know what? I'm actually going to see myself through a growth lens. I'm actually going to see myself from a not having to prove myself lens. And there are a couple places in our human design chart that I want to point out to you that can just be helpful to look at as a way of de-shedding the shame from your life and moving into this place where you realize that you are okay as you are. And human design is really helpful for that because it's that place of, I am this design for a reason. I chose this design for a reason. And it's not prescriptive either, right? If you're a projector, that doesn't actually mean anything specific about you other than how your energy works, right? Like you are still a fully formed human who is also a projector or generator or whatever you might be. It just gives you guideposts for how your energy moves so that you can start trusting yourself. Shame really takes that away from us. And in times in the collective when the shame noise gets even louder, or there are more and more people wanting us to feel shame, there are more and more people trying to tell people that they are inherently wrong, that tells me that we are on the precipice of something. Like, there are people that are doubling down their money to make sure that we don't see how powerful we are just by being ourselves, just by being who we are without feeling wrong for it. And I've worked with so many clients over the years where when we get under this, like when we heal shame, life takes off. Like relationships improve, work improves, or it needs to change and it needs to be something different. Parenting changes. How someone shows up in their community changes. The ripple effect of you making these changes about shame in your life are so significant. Like, I don't think we'll ever actually understand the ripples that happen when we take shame and we transmute it into something that has more compassion and more gratitude and more hope and more possibility and more trusting that we don't need to see ourselves as not good enough or not worthy to get shit done at the end of the day. There aren't very many problems that we have in society or that problems that individual people have that don't often come back to shame. So I also think of this as like a lot of times our problems and trying to fix things can feel like whack-a-mole. Like we're over there and then something pops up over here and we need to do something about it. Where getting to shame gets like right to the root of the thing. So we're not feeling like we're whack-a-moling. It's like, oh, actually, I can see how various patterns that I have are all connected to these things. So it can also bring us a little bit of relief that we don't have like 15 separate problems. We have one or two beliefs that we actually have the power to change. And it's our job to change them. And it's our job to hold hope that it's possible to change them. And if you don't have that hope yet, I will hold the hope for you until you do. Because the amount of people that I see who don't feel like it's possible to change their shame, they always do. We all have the power within us to change these things and to transmute our shame. That's part of what we've been disenfranchised from. Right? We have been sold that we need to seek the answers outside of ourselves to tell or figure out from somebody else how to do it when it's within us. So let's get into it. I know that was a long intro, but we're just going to go through a couple things that human design can help point out or things that we can tune our attention into that can help us transmute our shame in real time. And transmuting shame is a very action-oriented thing that we have to do, especially when we're talking about deeply programmed and conditioned beliefs, right? So we have to start by, do I even know when I'm shaming myself? Do I even know what it looks like to be in shame, right? The physical sensation of being in shame. So helpful to know. What does it sound like when I'm in shame? And again, not like I did something bad, but I am bad. I am inherently something. Those are the beliefs that we're kind of taking a sledgehammer to get you unstuck. So the first place I want you to look in your human design chart, and you can get on my website at soulfootingguidance.com if you don't already have one. But if you already know, I want you to look at your undefined centers. So any center in the body graph that is white or open, we would call it. Those can be really helpful to notice, where am I taking messaging in from other people about how I should be. And again, it's not always someone telling you like, this is what you should be, right? Sometimes it's us taking messaging in from people of like, smart people go to college, right? And then we're like, oh, I'm supposed to go to college. I should go to college. If I don't go to college, I'm not smart enough. And if I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough. Boom, shame. All of that is made up, right? There's not a smart meter if you go to college or not. Maybe it's a part of your path, maybe it's not. So if you have, let's say, an undefined G center, that would be something where, are you taking in what other people think you should do? Are you taking in other people's life directions? Are you feeling like you need to compare yourself to other people and then hop on their path because it seems like they're doing the right thing? If you have an undefined G center, you're not meant to have a life direction that is like this linear path. You might feel like your life has been like a meandering river. I think of this when I went to undergrad for college. I started out thinking I wanted to be a dietitian. And then I did classes to be a dietitian for 2 years, and I was like, not for me. Like, I do not like this. I'm not interested in it. Sure, I could pass it. I could get the grades if I needed to, but I am bored and I do not care. So it wasn't for me. And I have an undefined G center, right? So that was like, I thought I was going to be a dietitian. That is not my life direction. Okay, we are shifting over here. I got this job at a care home and got really interested in mental health. So I was like, I'm going to work with people in mental health and addiction recovery. And then, oh, I think I'm going to go to grad school in Minnesota. Just kidding. I'm going to go to grad school in Oregon. Right? You might have more of a meandering path, and you're meant to, right? You're meant to have one thing hop to the next, and it might be like, how do we get here? But it all was meant to happen that way, where someone with a defined G center might have a life direction that is a little bit more linear. Or they've maybe known what they wanted to do since they were a kid, and that was true for them. But we can see how these differences and us being like, I'm supposed to be consistent where I'm not actually supposed to be consistent, automatically moves me into shoulds. Same with like, if you are someone with an undefined sacral, you're not meant to have consistent energy. You're not meant to wake up with a recharged battery every day and use that energy to its fullest. So if you're comparing yourself to someone, you're like, I wish I could, is often how it starts. Or I should be able to do what my husband does. We can see how that path is going to go. I should be able to do what my husband does. Because I can't do what my husband does, I'm lazy. If I'm lazy, that means I'm not good enough. Shame. Boom. And it might sound to us just like we're saying, I should be this certain way. We might not tie in the fact that like, oh, you're actually really shaming yourself when you're shoulding yourself. But you are. It's just those couple layers deeper. And it does keep us stuck, right? And if that person compares themselves to their husband every time he does something that a sacral would do, which is responding to his environment and doing the things that he loves because he has tons of energy to do that, those are moments of shame over and over again. And instead of that person who has an undefined sacral going, I just want to stay home. I need to rest, or let me do something like laying down in bed while I'm also fascinated by reading this article or something while I'm laying down. They don't get a chance to do that, right? It's I'm lazy, I'm not good enough, so let me try to force myself to have a sacral, basically, or let me try to force myself to be like other people. And that doesn't work. It leads to burnout. It leads to exhaustion. If you have an undefined sacral, you are meant to be inconsistent, and that's just how it is. So another part about it helps us really take away the shame when we move into acceptance and we move into compassion. Like, how would I speak to someone compassionately about this being the way it is? How do I speak to someone compassionately about, you don't have consistent energy, now what? If it doesn't mean anything about you, if it doesn't mean anything bad about you, that you don't have consistent energy, how are we going to move through our life? What can we have gratitude for in our life that we don't have consistent energy? What does not having consistent energy allow you to do? And same goes vice versa. It's less common that way, right? Where someone's like, I wish I didn't have a sacral. But anytime we are wanting to be something that we are not, it's likely that we're going to move into shame. And anytime we want to be perceived a certain way, we're most likely to have shame under that because there's a should hiding there. So looking at our undefined centers can be a really helpful way of, where am I taking energy in from other people? And where am I maybe not accepting this inconsistency about myself? Where am I not giving myself room to be an inconsistent person, inconsistent energy, have inconsistent energy in this spot? And it shows up in all 9 centers differently. But that can be a really helpful place to go, okay, where am I taking stuff in that I maybe need to be mindful of? And another place I would want people to look is in their core wound. And this is a little bit more gene key, dives us into gene keys a little bit more, but can be a really important thing for people to know about their chart. And our core wound lives in our unconscious Mars in the body graph. So there'll be a number and then a decimal point and another number. And both of those are significant. So the number that we have on the first one is a gene key or a human design gate. They're both the same. And that will tell us, like, these are the shadow parts, these are the gifts, these are the city of our core wound. And then the other number is 1 through 6, and each one of those corresponds to a different core wound. So with the different core wounds, we can kind of see it as this walk that we take between 2 polarities. Or we can also see it as we have this core wound and then kind of an antidote to that core wound. So for the first one, line 1, so if it's 0.1 on your body graph, that means that your core wound is repression, and what you need more of is honesty. So a lot of times this is kind of the not even being honest with yourself, not letting yourself feel internalized suffering, keeping it locked in, keeping it shut out, keeping it shut down. And you're needing more honesty. And that can be honesty with yourself, honesty with the people around you, right? A lot of people with line 1 might be people that are like, it's really hard for me to be honest when I'm not doing well. And my job is to be honest when I'm not doing well, to be vulnerable in that way. And that will actually help you overcome your core wound. So again, it's the core wound is repression, but at its root, shame is connected to it. So the more honest that you are about what you're going through, about what you're feeling, that is something that can pull you out of shame. Line 2 is denial, and you're meant to move toward ease. So denial is very much like denial of wanting to go inward, denial of whether that inward be denial of pain, denial of discomfort, right? Not wanting to look at it. And the more that people with denial allow themselves to go inward and allow themselves to touch whatever they've been trying not to, or often projecting out to other people, the more ease that they'll feel in their life. So that's the antidote to shame, is allow yourself to feel it, allow yourself to look inward, allow yourself to feel it, touch it, be with it. So line 3 is shame and moving toward humor. And this Corwundo shame is really locked into self-loathing. I really think of it as kind of the beating yourself up for how you handled something or any of those things. And the move to, okay, how can we be more gentle with ourselves? How can we move to humor about like being a human on this rock and finding the lightness from our life is the humor side. And then line 4 is rejection to gentleness. And that rejection is really connected to abandonment and pain in that way. And that we're needing to be more gentle with ourselves. Learning how to not perceive every rejection as personal and about that specific person. And to move to a place of being able to speak to oneself differently. And then we have line 5, which is guilt. And this one's a little different, where it's often like guilting someone else in order to have power, in order to feel more power. So it's a lot more connected to power struggles. And how we move out of that is forgiveness. And this one can also show up as like feeling like you're the one that has to teach someone a lesson about something instead of letting their own life teach it to them, right? Letting other people take ownership of their own patterns. Like if you break up with someone and they go back and do exactly the same stuff they've been doing, that's their ride. And it's not your job to make them understand something or to hold something over their heads so that they get it. So it's kind of that place of how do you forgive so that you can move forward without feeling like stuck and loopy. And then the last one is line 6, which is separation. And this one, often people feel very isolated, othered, alone. And sometimes that plays out by someone accidentally even making themselves feel othered and kind of leaning into that feeling. And they're meant to move toward care. So more care for themselves, more gentleness with themselves. And again, we all have all of these core wounds. Like you might resonate with all of them. We just have one primary one that shows up kind of all over the place in our life and maybe all over the place in your day. It's the thing we're going to touch over and over and over again. And so awareness is a big way that we even start transmuting it. And that's even bigger than just our core wound. That's shame overall, right? The more aware that we are of our shame, the more we can do something about it. Especially the sneaky kind where you're not like, I hate myself. You're saying the should that you don't even realize is connected to shame. So I would look here at the core wounds. A big place that can help you find compassion and surrender and give you actionable steps to move from your core wound to the place that it's trying to bring you. And our core wound is basically the wound of humanity, of the collective, that we have to navigate throughout our lifetime. So a lot of times our core wound will show us like, how do we navigate shame? How do we avoid pain or try to avoid pain? And what does it look like when we get stuck in that shadow? Because we always have these dualities, right? We have our lowest expression, our highest expression, our shadows and our gifts that we are meant to constantly be moving through. So a lot of times people will feel shame that they keep doing something, that they keep living out the core wound or whatever it might be. And it's how we're designed. We are meant to have that core wound. And also we are meant to be aware of it, learn about it. And when we're doing that, how do we move into compassion, surrender, gratitude? Those are huge aspects of moving through shame. And maybe I would add willingness. Are you willing to see yourself differently? Are you willing to decide and heal these beliefs? Are you willing to disprove them? Because a lot of times, right, you build your whole life on those beliefs. You build your whole life on, well, I'm not good enough, so this is how I navigate my life. Or here's how I constantly try to prove that I am good enough, and I get so lost in the hustle of trying to prove that I'm good enough that I don't even realize I'm doing it. And there's layers to these things, right? So if we even walk through moving shame into more self-compassion and being able to be more gentle with ourselves, things start to change automatically, right? Relationships that relied on you feeling shitty about yourself have to change when you have more compassion for yourself. Like it makes you move into these places where you set up more boundaries if you need them. And you don't tolerate things when you are not getting stuck in these shame loops. They go together. Another place I would have you look in your human design chart would be your ego/heart center. And whether it's defined or undefined, that spot comes with, it's about motivation, it's about willpower, but a big thing that comes up from that is worthiness. Am I worthy? Do I believe that I'm worthy? And again, like I said, it doesn't matter if it's defined or undefined. Everyone might want to do some work there, right? If it's defined, you have consistent willpower, you have consistent motivation, and you have the ability to know what you're worth. And when it's undefined, you are inconsistent. Your willpower is inconsistent. Your motivation is inconsistent. And can you still know that you're worthy, even if you're not motivated all the time? Or you lost oomph on a project that you were really into, and now you're like, I'm not feeling it as much. Can we still hold that we are worthy? Those are just a couple places I would start. There are so many places we can look to in each person's individual human design chart that tells us about conditioning. Like, for example, your definition, if you're single definition versus split versus triple split, whatever your definition is, will also tell us a lot about where you take it in conditioning. And even different gates that you have, different channels that you have. There's a wealth of information in your human design chart about decoding your shame, releasing shame, deconditioning. And I have seen this tool speed up healing in a way that I've never seen before. It makes you look at some shit, right? It makes you look at, oh, these are some things I felt, or these are some patterns that I have, or, oh yeah, I do try to not feel discomfort in my relationships. And sometimes that looks like, or often that looks like denying responsibility or getting defensive or, whatever those things are, and being like, oh, okay, now that I know that, now that I have awareness, there are ways for me to acknowledge that core wound without shaming myself for having one. Because if I'm shaming myself for having one, I'm literally shaming every single person for having one. We all have it. And that's also the sticky thing with shame, right? You think you're the only one getting harmed by it, and that is just not true. Like, I'll use parenting as an example. When our children see us shaming ourselves, whether it's you look in the mirror and you don't like what you see and you talk to yourself negatively, or you get weird with food because you feel shameful about your body, or you don't think you're smart enough, or whatever that is, your child is half of you. They are half of you genetically. They look to you. And it matters how you speak about yourself and how they see you speaking about yourself. That is one thing from my own childhood that I remember, right, is I now have so much compassion for my mom, but I often saw her in shame about her body. And now that I'm a mom, my body looks exactly like her body, right? Same scars, same places I carry weight. I look like my mother. And I was told throughout my whole life, my body, meaning hers, is not a good one. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. I need to fix this. And here I am, a mother living with that same body. And how it usually goes when we're not aware of it is I would do the same thing to my daughter, right? That shame is passed down without even realizing it. And I'm going to work my ass off for that to not be the case, right? For me to not hold, I am bad, I am not good enough, because it does get passed down. And it does make it so the next person has a lot more work to do. So my goal is to make sure my daughter has less work to do. I'm sure there will still be work to do because we are humans and that happens. But those are the moments where we can see how important this work is and how big of a difference we can make, right? Because I know that about my mom's shame and where it could have passed to me. I now am making sure it ends there, it stops there, it's not happening. While also not shaming her for how she was with her body, or maybe how she still is. And I can have compassion. So because I can have compassion for me, I can have compassion for her. This is life-changing work. It's really deep. It's really important. And I just feel like we're so ready for it. Like, we have made it to this place of inner strength and wisdom and awareness. And we're ready to shed some of these things that we don't need anymore. And we're ready to shed these things that are no longer and have never been effective when it comes to care and gentleness. The generations to come deserve our hardest effort to break these patterns of shame transmission. And shame transmission shows up all the time, right? Like, the body image one is just one example, but someone who yells at their kids all the time is feeling a ton of shame. Someone who judges other people's bodies is feeling a ton of shame. If you have an opinion or judgment about anyone, you are feeling shame. It shows up in everything. And so, like I was saying, right, because it shows up in everything, when we get to the root of it, we start healing everything at the same time. And I don't expect any of you to take on the collective need to shed shame. All you have to do is start with you. You don't need your mom to do it too. You don't need your partner to do it too. Like, it truly can be just you taking it on in your own world, deciding you're not going to take on these messages from other people, deciding you're not going to live by shoulds, that you're not going to get stuck in these shame loops. And that alone is going to help everyone else. So without even having to make sure you're helping other people, you are helping other people. And if you are feeling like, yes, this resonates with me, but I need help, I would love to help, because what I'm suggesting is a big/hard job at times and doesn't need to happen alone. So my one-on-one 3-month mentorship is open. I have room for about 5 people right now. So join me, and you can do this shame deconditioning with support, one-on-one, in a very safe, non-judgmental, yet still diving deep container. And I will put the link in the show notes below. So feel free to join me for a consultation. The consultation is free. We can dive deep together. So you can also find me on TikTok and on Instagram if you want to follow along for more. And I will see you next time. Thank you for joining me.